don't like playing piano ideas on the guitar. It's Friday. It's Advanced Melodic Chords Concepts Day. We're going to combine a couple of techniques that we like to use, that I like to use, that are built into the melodic chord concept. One of them is our version of the drop 2 voicing. Lately I've been calling it omit 2, which can be a little confusing in its own way, but it's meant to help eliminate the issue I have when I'm trying to explain the way I do drop 2 versus the standard drop 2, because they are a little different. Standard drop 2 says that when we have a 4-note voicing, we find the top pitch that we're using for any particular inversion, we go down to the second note from it, and we drop it an octave. That's a drop 2 chord. Okay, this is not a guitar concept. This comes from arranging. This is very old, before there were guitars and fretboards and people with short fingers that couldn't play all of the closed position voicings on the fretboard in every inversion. It comes from the idea of arranging and needing different instruments to be able to drop, so that, you know, maybe a horn player's range doesn't go high enough, they can drop it down and now all the pitches move down. Our version, the way that I like to play around with these, is omit 2, just get rid of it. Okay? That way every inversion we play is made of 3 different pitches. One pitch is missing, and every time we move to a new voicing, a new inversion, that pitch appears and another pitch disappears. So it kind of helps mix up the colors a little bit more. So these are, I sometimes call them our 3-note quadratonic voicings, and they're built, generally speaking, by just omitting or getting rid of the second to top note for any inversion. We're going to combine that with our piano player concept of left hand, right hand, where we have a lower structure, a harmonic structure, and an upper melodic structure. Usually when I do this, the upper structure, the melodic structure, is an upper structure triad. Today I decided let's not worry about that, so the melodic structure and the harmonic structure, the left and right hand of our imaginary piano player, are actually going to both be playing the same thing effectively. The left hand's going to be playing G7, the right hand's going to be playing a G major triad. Okay, so that's going to keep this a little bit simpler, but you still have to kind of keep 2 plates spinning in the air. So this is an advanced idea on its own, but it's a slightly less advanced idea because we're not using upper structure. Okay, but we still have to think about 2 different things at the same time and play 2 different things at the same time. So grab the PDF, and we're just going to go through this sort of one measure at a time. I'm going to show you what's happening here, and then we'll talk about kind of how to practice it, how to visualize it, and how to resolve it and put it into your playing. Okay? So these are G7 sharp 11 chords. It's probably the best way to think of them. And the idea is, going back to our piano player, these are not going to be our fully extended voicings where we're playing a low shell voicing and then a triad up top. These are going to be like left-hand piano bass line, right? If you listen to good piano music, sometimes you'll hear them playing bass lines in their left hand. Not necessarily walking bass lines, like even in a trio when there is a bass player, they might be doubling a bass line, just playing something that's sort of a bass melody. So here's the very simple version of the bass melody that I wrote out in every measure. Dirty pots. Root, sharp 11, flat 5, right? There is going to be a natural 5 in these voicings, so it's probably best to think of this as a sharp 11. Root, sharp 11, flat 7, root. Right? That's it. Very simple bass line. That's like the left hand of the piano player, and then above that we're going to drop these little cluster voicings. Again, these voicings are going to come from our version of the drop 2 voicings, or omit 2. So the first measure, we're using G major tension sharp 4. That's been our quadratonic all week long. So that's a G major triad, GBD, and I'm adding the tension sharp 4, the C sharp note, to it. So our 4-note voicing is G, B, C sharp, D. Those are the 4 pitches we're working with, and then within that set, we're going to omit the second to top note from each voicing, except one. There is a little exception. I'll show it to you in a minute. So the the first voicing in measure 1, if you look at it, it starts, the top note is, what did I put on top? Is the 9th fret. Okay, 9th fret, that's C sharp. There's our voicing. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just descending these 4 notes. Right? Andrew, what's happening, man? Good to see you. Miles, awesome. All you guys are on here today. Right? Just omitting the second to top note. We get left with this nice little simple diagonal line. Okay, left hand of the piano player, right hand of the piano player. Boo boo da da ba, da da da. If you want to get really sort of nerdy about it with me, you can try and sort of palm mute the low bass line and then let the chord ring out. Okay, that might take a few run-throughs at slow tempos to get the hang of it, but it's a nice way to set apart a textural difference between the bottom and the top voices. You don't have to, but something to play with. Okay? You want to play with that over and over and over. It's a little bit of a leap. Nothing huge, but it's a little bit of a leap. Really think about how are you going to be able to take this. There are still 6 more measures on the PDF with different inversions, but how can you take this and get comfortable enough with it that you can move it through the circle of fifths, right? The answer is always the same, geometry. We don't want to have to think every time we move to a new key, especially when we're dealing with upper structure triads. Right now, this is a root structure triad, but it's still a new shape. It doesn't look like a triad. It certainly doesn't sound like a triad. How are we going to find it quickly enough that we can just move it through the circle of fifths, which means we know it quickly enough to just apply it into a standard, right? Just into comping or playing solo guitar over a standard. The way that I would do it is I would look at the relationship here. This is almost exactly just a straight G major triad, right? The one that looks like the open D chord up here. So this is my G major triad, right? So I'm just looking at the highest pitch of that position of the G triad. Hopefully by now you know it if you've been following me. This is our lowest G major triad position. There's the G triad built on the highest note of it. And then I'm just going to move the top note up to tension sharp 4. Okay, so if I want to move this to the key of C to play a C7 sharp 9, what are we working with today? C7 sharp 11. Right, there's C. All I'm doing is finding my C note here, and then finding my C triad here, built on the top note of that position, which is the 3rd, but then I'm moving it up to the sharp 4. Here's F, here's B flat, there it is, right here's E flat, A flat, D flat, there it is. I knew it didn't sound right. What key man, that's B, here's E, A, D, G. These are sharp 11 chords, so I would generally use this more as like a tritone sub type of resolution, meaning that it's going to want to resolve down from G to F sharp major or F sharp minor. Not always, but in general, that's how I hear them as preferring to move. So I might take a few minutes and actually practice that resolution of whatever voicing we use. In this case, we're still looking at measure 1. We haven't gone on to the other measures yet. I'm going to find F sharp majors and minors right next to this top voicing. Okay, hopefully when they're in tune. Yeah, so one measure at a time, find the voicing, find its relationship against the bass line, practice playing it over and over. If you want to throw in that palm muting to get a little bit of a textural change between the low voices and the high voices, that's cool, but not necessary. Try moving it at least to a few other keys. If you can get through the circle of fifths, that's ideal. And then start looking for some places where you can create a musical cadence, a resolution. Right, that was A flat minor, G7 sharp 11, G flat major. So 2-5-1 with the tritone sub and with this kind of advanced way of expressing the harmony here. Can you hear how it's moving through the chord progression? Okay. Let's look at the next inversion down. Same exact game, same bass line, same set of 4 pitches that we're picking from for the voicing, but now we're going to change the order of them. So the top voice is now B. So this is B note, and we're moving down, right? So what is it? B, G, D, C sharp. We're going to get rid of this note, that's G. So now B, D, C sharp. So now we get this wonderful little minor second stuck right in the middle of the voicing. Very crunchy. So it's root, sharp 11, flat 7, root, sharp 11, 5th, 3rd. Okay, so this geometry is a little easier to see now because the pointer finger is literally doing the same fret on every string that we're using it on. Right? 3rd fret, 3rd fret, 3rd fret. We just have to know where to stretch these other 2 fingers. Steps along the way, understanding that the concept of what we're doing, left hand, right hand, bass line, cluster chord, understanding how to find the cluster chord using that drop 2 or omit 2 technique, melodic triad technique, or 3-note quadratonic voicings, practicing getting it moving, then moving it through the circle of fifths. Okay, we can also take it and think about the functional movement that it wants to do, because even though it doesn't sound like it, the best way to understand these is as a singular chord, right? I know there's like single notes we're playing, there's voicings, there's all kinds of different things, but it's just G7 sharp 11. That's what it is. How we express it is very specific and advanced in today's lesson, but it's just a G7 sharp 11. How do you want to use that G7 sharp 11? I think the best way, at least for now, is to get used to resolving it down a half step. We could move it through and maybe go to like a C7, sharp 11, do some kind of dominant cycle, but let's just practice it 5-1. That's the most common, or I should say tritone sub in this case. Flat 2 dominant to 1. I think that's the most organic and smooth resolution for a dominant 7 sharp 11. So how can we voice lead this voicing to F sharp major? Ooh. Miles, where you at, man? Here's our contrary motion and oblique motion. Six, 4, 6. This happens to be another drop 2 or omit 2 3-note quadratonic voicing. This one comes from F sharp. So the ring finger can stay ring out. There's our oblique motion, and the other 2 fingers kind of close in and collapse on each other by a half step. Major 7 quadratonic stuff. This is B flat minor tension 4. Okay. Next measure after this one is this wonderful little dude. We got the tritone interval on top and the whole step underneath it. Very crunchy little sound. What's the best way to visualize it? Well, it's, again, the root notes on top. This is right here. I mean, it doesn't get more clear cut than that to me. There was G flat major. Let's try resolving a G flat minor, because we haven't done that yet, and we can. Said that yes, there's a lot happening inside this sound, but it's just a G7 sharp 11 chord. It's the best way to understand what it is, and this is what I mean. Like, we can vamp on. Here's G flat or F sharp minor major 7 and G7 back and forth, like just as a vamp. Throw this in on top when the G7's there, right? Because it's just a G7 sharp 11 with a lot of little baby steps and advanced ornamentations happening to it. And it doesn't even have to be like in the real book changes. If I'm playing with a trio and we're just kind of doing an open vamp on a G flat minor chord, even if the bass player doesn't follow me, even if he's just vamping on this G flat 1-5, I can still leave what he's doing temporarily, jump up a half step, and he'll still be waiting there for me when I come back, and it'll sound like it's together. Still works. It's just a little pocket of harmonic tension because now he's playing the minor 1, or really just the 1 because he's not playing a chord, he's just playing the root notes. He's playing the 1, I'm leaving it and going to the tritone sub, right? I'm going to the sound of a dominant and then coming back. Leaving and coming back, so we can do that. The next inversion is slightly different. Okay, the next inversion is technically speaking sort of like a drop 3 inversion, a drop 3 voicing, I should say. Instead of getting rid of or omitting the 2, I'm omitting the 3rd. Why did I do it that way? Not just trying to be a jerk, I did it because otherwise we end up with just a straight G major triad. And sometimes I'm fine with that, but in this context it just sounds way too cheesy. If you want to practice it with the G major triad, you can, but I went ahead and changed it to this sound. Just to hide the simplicity and vanilla nature of the basic triad. So instead of 3-4-5, it's 3-6-5. So now we get that half step in the top 2 voices, which oftentimes is something I try to avoid, which is why I almost always get rid of the 2nd note, because that way we never have a minor or major 2nd up here in the top 2 voices, because it's always has to be at least a minor 3rd apart to get from here to here. But in this case, by getting rid of this note, now we have that minor 2nd up here, which is okay. It's a great sound. I do use it, but it's a very, what's the right word? It's the kind of sound that you really want to pay attention to, okay? It can cause problems. I don't know if there's any other Marvel nerds out there. I really liked the Avenger movies. Putting a minor or major 2nd in the top 2 voices is like the harmonic equivalence of Loki. Right? Like, he can be a good dude to have around. He's fun. He, like, does the right thing sometimes. He can be super helpful. And he's very powerful, but he's also kind of a dick. And, like, he can really screw things up hardcore. So you just have to be careful with it. Okay? It can obscure the purity of the sound that we're trying to create. It can obscure the melody. Okay? If you're trying to play melodically, like as a chord melody. Very difficult, like, can you sing the melody note to that? Very difficult to sing the melody note versus, like, most of you can probably hear that top note because the interval was wider, so it let your inner ear recognize the separation between the harmony and the melody, versus this, where it just sounds like a sound effect, like something you would have a guitar effects pedal, you'd stomp on it, and when you play a note, it turns it into like a squeak instead. Okay, so just be careful with this inversion, but it is worth playing it this way. I think it sounds cooler than the straight triad does in this context. In some contexts, straight triads sound perfect and gorgeous. In some of them, they're a little too cheesy sounding because there's so much else complex happening, and then there's this like childish little triad sitting there by itself. If we keep moving down, the next inversion, what are we into? Measure 2nd line, measure 4. I'm sorry, measure 5. But we got the sharp 4 up on top instead get minor second, really crunchy minor second, way down in the register of the instrument, kind of farther down in the register in the instrument than we would generally be able to get away with playing a minor second. It just sounds so muddy, but it can be kind of a cool effect, especially given that the next interval in the chord is such a wide interval. What is that, a major 6? Here's a G flat 6, or we could go to G minor, G flat minor. And then I think I put one more, yeah. Okay, this inversion, you'll notice the top voice is the same note as the bass line. So as soon as I played it, I didn't write it this way, I didn't think about it until just now, but as soon as I played it, my mind heard the top voice of the chord, which is generally, I think of that as like our melodic voice, and it heard it as an extension of the bass melody, and it just wanted to hear more bass melody because it felt like they were kind of the same thing. So I just descended back down the bass melody. Okay, so we can resolve this one, or we can get it going as like a vamp, and we could actually use this when we're comping. You know, I might use something like this if I'm writing a tune, arranging a tune. I might write out the bass line and tell the bass player, hey, play this. And then I might double him, but harmonize that top note. Do is maybe have the horn section do little stabs, doubling this chord with me. Right, so now the bass player and I are doing something related but slightly different, and the horn players and I are doing something slightly related, or related but slightly different. So now all three of us together are kind of like dancing around with each other, kind of playing around, all based on the same idea, but in slightly different ways, where we're kind of tag teaming up at different moments to create different effects. Okay. So you can take any one of these and move it through the circle of fifths alone, any individual measure, and then you can practice resolving it. That's all great stuff to do. You can then take it and try putting it into a tune. So maybe you're playing through, what's a good tune that we could apply this to? Maybe something like All the Things You Are. I think it'll work. Here's C minor, F minor, B flat, E flat, A flat major 7. I'm going to go ahead and alter that A flat major 7 to A flat dominant, and treat it as the tritone sub that wants to resolve down to G major. Did you catch it? A flat. Anywhere there's a 2-5-1 in a tune, just think of the 5 as the tritone sub, and you can inject this movement pattern into it with any of the inversions, and then resolve to the 1. The other thing you can do is kind of mess around with thinking of this as a chord scale. So you can kind of ignore the left hand of the piano for now and just think about the right hand, the different inversions. It's effectively a chord scale or just a series of chordal inversions that you can move through. Right? Just gonna loop that bass line that I was playing a second ago. Playing this in a situation, I'm probably not just going to be running up and down a chord scale or a set of inversions, but being able to see them and move up or down one or two chords, one or two inversions can be a really cool effect. So lots of ways that you can kind of play around with using this idea. Again, this technique of breaking things apart could give me arranging ideas, because I can take the bass line that my imaginary piano player is playing in their left hand, and I can just give it to the bass player, and maybe if I have a piano in the group, I can have the left hand of the piano doubling it, and then I can write quote-unquote right hand ideas, melodic structure ideas, up above that, maybe on the guitar, where the guitar and or horn section are playing these types of ideas. Right? While the bass line's happening underneath it. So now I'm not necessarily playing them both at the same time, but in my mind I am able to conceptualize how they work together because I practiced them on the fretboard. Okay, the cops are coming, so I think that means that I need to end this and start running, because apparently the jazz police don't like playing piano ideas on the guitar. Put questions in the comment section, grab the PDF, use it, play around with this idea, and hit me up if you need any help, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Happy practicing. Hey YouTube, it's Jordan Clemens with NYC Jazz Guitar Masterclasses and the Melodic Triads Study Group. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a ton of content coming out on YouTube this year. We've been doing daily jazz guitar lessons, so I'm going to be posting videos like this pretty much every day. So if you dug this and you want to follow me, subscribe and make sure that you turn on notifications so that you can watch more videos like this. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the comment section. Hope to see you in the next video.